G'day folks, in this video I'm going to go through a set of proposed controls for games like Grand Branch and Grey Zone Warfare, specifically around controlling tactical devices attached to weapons. I find this set of controls far more immersive and intuitive, easier to use, compared to what's currently supported natively within those games. So much so to the point of hacked together a VoiceAttack profile in order to actually demonstrate these controls working in action in the game Grand Branch. The too long didn't watch version of this video is a list of controls currently shown on screen. However, I will demo the controls and explain some of the reasons why they are the way that they are and how it all sort of comes together. Okay, I'm in game in Grand Branch. If I hold the back thumb button on my mouse, I'll turn on the visible white light attached to my weapon. It's a dedicated button, it has no double duty with any other function, so it's a deliberate action in order to turn on the flashlight and emit visible light. Forward thumb button on my mouse turns on the laser and the illuminator, depending on what mode I've actually got it set on. So if I actually single tap caps lock, I can turn that illuminator on and off together with my laser. So if I hit forward thumb button, it's going to turn on both the laser and the illuminator, or just the laser by itself, depending on what I've got it set at. If I double tap caps lock, it'll change that illuminator beam from a wide beam to a narrow beam, and vice versa. If I hold down control, it will change that IR laser to a visible laser, and vice versa. Notice that the setting of the illuminator being on together with the IR laser is kept when turning between IR and visible, and it's also not blasting the IR illuminator when I've got just the visible laser on, even though I'm still holding the forward thumb button on my mouse. Okay, so why do I have the controls the way that they are? 1, the white light, I want a dedicated button, as I've already explained. 2, when I'm working under nods at distance, I might want that narrow beam on the illuminator. However, when transitioning into tight spaces, I want to either change that into a wide beam by double tapping caps lock, or I want to turn it off full stop by just single tapping caps lock. Additionally, particularly when I'm using a narrow beam on the IR illuminator, if I'm working around friendlies, all of a sudden I'm blasting my friend over there right in the nods with high intensity IR. Well, I want to quickly turn it off. So that's why caps lock, single tap, quickly turns off the illuminator and also quickly turns it back on. The proposed controls are simply additional controls bound to separate keys in order to provide quicker access, usually during combat, to provide the common functions which are useful in 99% of scenarios which are found within game. Just to give an example, I find that working under nods, I either want both the IR laser and the illuminator on at the same time, or simply the laser on by itself. What I don't have as a quick access is actually simply the illuminator on by itself. That's by design. I would rather the trade-off of a single button switch quickly cycle between just laser and the illuminator, or just the laser by itself, as opposed to have to cycle through between 3 separate modes. However, with the existing controls, specifically the attachment wheel within Grand Branch and similarly tactical device list within Grey Zone Warfare, you can select whatever attachment that you want, whatever configuration on. So for example, I can just have the IR illuminator on by itself, have the flashlight on at the same time, turn on the laser, why not, whatever I want. However, when I'm done with that and quickly just want to have my laser and illuminator on, I've got quick access to it. A single button on my mouse wheel forward, and then simply changing the modes using caps lock, depending on what I actually need. So people with mice that don't have those thumb buttons can still use the attachment wheel in order to actually use the tactical devices, and similarly the tactical device list in Grey Zone Warfare. For people with mice with the mouse scroll wheel left or mouse scroll wheel right, or some other device that might have additional controls. Just to give an example, what I find really nice to use is having the mouse scroll wheel left in order to turn on and off the IR illuminator, or similarly mouse scroll wheel right in order to actually adjust the Illuminator beam width. I find it really nice to actually use, and simply having those additional options makes it both more immersive, intuitive, and simply less friction in order to enjoy the game. Okay, I'll just end the video with showing the list of the controls, both for Ground Branch as well as Grey Zone Warfare. Some thought has been given into actually having it incorporated into the current control scheme and potential future controls that might be necessary in the future. But please let me know whether or not this hits or misses the mark, if people are actually interested, if the developers are actually interested, and let me know if anyone's interested in the VoiceAttack profile to try it out themselves. Okay, thanks folks, bye.